Sir Jim.
Hi, Ma'am. Hi, Ma'am Angeli. Are we starting? Ma'am Angeli? Hi, Ma'am. Hi, Ma'am Angeli. Are we starting?
Sir Jim. Sir Padit is with us po via Zoom.
All right.
Hi, Sir Padit.
Hello po.
I guess we can start na po. Parang okay naman na. Pag nawala na lang ako, Sir Padit will be there naman po. Sir Padit is with us po.
Okay, so let's start. Angeli, can you hear me?
Yes, sir.
All right. Sige.
I'm sharing now my screen. Kita naman po. Ano po?
Yes, yes.
Wait lang, sir. All right, good afternoon, everybody, and welcome to our Antipolo National High School Webinar Series 2020, Transitioning to the New Normal in Education. And for today, we have a session on distance learning and teaching, a webinar workshop with our invited speaker. But before we proceed to our actual or our proper session po, let me just remind everybody on our webinar guidelines, especially those who are attending via Zoom. Number one po, please mute your line during the presentation. Number two, please turn off your webcam. I just don't know if the screen is being flashed po, no? Nakikita po ba yung screen?
No, no, it's not.
No, okay.
Yes po.
It's just you and your slide.
Let me check, sir. Huh? Okay, to continue, another guidelines are the following. Please have your paper and pen for note taking, and questions will be addressed during the question and answer portion. You may jot down your questions in our comment box or chat box sa ating mga Zoom participants, and please remain connected throughout the session. And of course, wag nating kalilimutan ang happy learning. Now, if you wish to share your experience in our webinar this afternoon, you may use our official hashtag ANHS Webinar Series 2020. And now, let me present to you our speaker. Our speaker this afternoon is a grade school EdTech coordinator in Xavier School San Juan, digital learning specialist and consultant, 2017 Global Teacher Prize finalist, education technology coach and consultant, 30 under 30 global list of literacy leaders and change makers. He's one of those. He founded as well Kids Can Innovation Camp, and he is one of the most innovative education projects, or he has one of the most innovative education projects in the world. One of the 10 inspiring K-12 education innovation by 100, and the program has been translated into 11 international languages. He is also the founder of Empowered Podcast and Empowered TV. Ladies and gentlemen, our speaker this afternoon is Mr. Antipolo.
Good afternoon, everyone. Anjali, hello.
I just don't know if they heard me po introducing you.
It's okay.
Medyo unstable lang po yung
Yeah, it's okay. It's okay. No worries about it. I'm just gonna turn my video on, and I'm just gonna interact with everyone first. I just want to make sure. Okay, so we are being live right now. So may I ask those who are in Zoom, because you will be getting the screen when I'm speaking. So can you make sure that you turn off your sound and your video, right? Um, all right, so you can see myself. Can you see myself right now? I just need people to interact with me on on YouTube. All right. So I'm gonna give you a word, and I want you to write this in chat so that I would know if you are listening to me. Can you put hashtag Empower Ed live? Empower Ed live. Let me see if you can hear me. Please write Empower Ed live. All right. I think everyone can hear me. Everyone is online and listening to me, and I my voice is going through. So thank you so much. Good afternoon, everyone. I'm gonna say to everyone that I'm gonna start recording because I record all the sessions that I do. So just to give a disclaimer to everyone, I'm recording this discussion, and I just want to say that I am very very happy. So good afternoon to my session on distance teaching and learning. And what I just want to do is to give you a glimpse of how we would understand what it means to do distance education at this time of the pandemic. May I just express also my gratitude to Angeli and the whole community of Antipolo National High School for the invitation right now. So thank you so much. And I hope we are able to enjoy this discussion. If you have questions, please write it or write it in your notebook first. If you want to put it in chat, it's okay. But I just fear that if you put it in chat and there are a lot of people going in chat, we might lose your questions. So may I ask that you hold on to your questions for now, write them in your notes, and then we can go back. You can type it later on. Okay, so I'm gonna share my screen right now. I'm gonna share my screen to start my presentation. Can you see my screen? All right. So good afternoon, everyone. My session is about distance learning and teaching. This is a webinar workshop, and I've been giving this workshop for through a webinar sessions for a long time now. And I just want to clarify that while we talk about distance education, we want to contextualize it also in the way we will do education at this time of the pandemic. There are a lot of issues surrounding distance education as of the moment, and we see the Department of Education, everyone, teachers, supervisors, or even principals and other school leaders being put in the situation right now. But what I'm asking everyone is that we are all in this together. We will be collaborating and learning from each other, but I ask for the value or for openness. I ask for openness at the same time, flexibility and adaptability as I give you some of ideas that you can use in doing distance education in your home or in your school. So let me start. A few resources that I want to share. I have platforms, social media platforms, and they are all called Empower Ed. So Empower Ed with Francis Jim Toscano, and there's a podcast that I have started last March when the pandemic has started. I've started a podcast series. This podcast series teaches a lot of educators about what it means to do online distance learning. I'm sure that in Antipolo, for example, there are different ways of doing distance learning or distance education. You could do the different modalities. But if you're very interested to knowing about online distance learning, may I suggest that you open your Spotify, or if you're using an iPhone and you have access to Apple Podcast, please go and open those apps, search for Empower Ed, and then please take a look at this episodes that I have. There's a special series for online distance learning, and I have dedicated 5 episodes of the discussion to talk about online distance learning. Okay, so please make sure that you go online. Make sure that you are able to look at this resource that I have for everyone. I'm also starting what I call as Mr. Toscano's lectures, and I'm gonna be working on series one, online distance learning. So I got inspired by the talks that I have. Like right now, I'm really recording everything because I wanna put them online. I wanna share them to every educator who would like to study or know more about distance education. So please do make sure that you go on Facebook, subscribe to my page. It's called Empower Ed with Jim Toscano. It's the same with on YouTube. It's on Apple Podcasts and it's on Spotify also. So there you will be able to find different video materials for you to learn about what we mean by online distance learning or online education also, or distance education. So please make sure that you are able to go in there. And then while I'm doing this, may I also ask Angeli, if you are still there,
Yes, sir.
can you also do some back end channel with me on Facebook so that you can message me if the Wi-Fi signal is not really good on my side, and
Yes,
I'm
sir. Yes, sir. I will do po.
right.
Thank
All right,
you.
thank you. Okay, so let's start. I want to start with the discussion of distance education through going through the golden circle idea of Simon Sinek. I think you've seen Simon Sinek on Facebook online. He's the one who spoke about what the challenges about being a millennial. And of course, Simon Sinek is a very inspiring author also that teaches us how we go on understanding ourselves, understanding our culture in the company or organizations that we are working on. And one of the things that he actually shares to people is for us to know more about what we want to do, we start understanding it through answering our why. And from if we are clear with our why, then we proceed with our how. The procedures, the methodologies of how we are going to proceed with making our why a reality. And then of course, once we understand our why, we are clear with our methodology through the how, we will now go with the what. The what talks about what kind of education, what kind of learning do we want in distance education that we want to offer to our students. All right. So let's start with the first one. So why, how, and what of learning, of distance learning and teaching, or what we call as distance education. Let's start with our why. Our why could be answered by looking into today's context and needs. And of course, why are we doing distance education? Why are we looking into blended learning at this time of the pandemic? Why is the Department of Education asking us to choose which of the modalities will really work for our students, for their families, for their parents at this time of the pandemic? Because we are in a state of public health emergency. I think this is what we need to understand. And this is something that I need you to consider because when you design your modules, whether they're offline, online, or printed, or even create broadcast lessons that you have for TV and radio, I want you to understand that we are doing this because we are in a state of public health emergency. Life is not normal. There is a crisis. Therefore, safety, security, and even well-being are high stakes. What do we mean by that? We simply mean that at this time of the year, and you hear this a lot on television, or maybe among educators that you have, or even parents, their priority is not even education. Let us be very, very honest with that, that sometimes the priority that they have is not even education. They're now thinking of where are they going to get food that they will bring on the table or to the table for them to feed their children. And of course, there's this idea that things are not yet safe. So therefore they are scared for the life of their children. And for me, I would understand them because this is the challenge right now. The challenge right now is how do we ensure that we are safe at the same time we are still continuing with education. But what I would like to ask from everyone is to be more patient, to be more understanding as of this time, because we have parents, we have children who are scared for their life. I just want to be personal with you. Right now in our building, I'm stuck in my building. I'm based in Santa Mesa, Manila, and you know what? There's a COVID case. I think there's presumably two positive cases in our building. And right now, it's really hard to do work from home. I'm doing work from home for our school, and I just found out that it's very, very challenging to work, right? I cannot work well because I fear for my health. I fear for my life. So if you look at it, it becomes very challenging also. I'm doing work from home, I'm an adult, but at the same time, it's the same challenge for our students. So let's be more understanding at this time of the pandemic. And then, of course, there's an effect. What is the effect in education? The effect in the education right now is, there's a school disruption. There's a school disruption that is happening. Um, we cannot go to school, we cannot do face-to-face learning, and that's very understandable. And we have to follow that. We have to follow that because we also want to make sure that we are safe. So therefore, when there is school closure, we cannot go to school, what would happen? There's a gap. I think this is what we need to understand. Teacher and students, and students are in different location. So therefore, we cannot do face-to-face interaction. There's a big gap. I think we need to recognize that, so that when we design our modules, when we design our lessons, whether online or whatever modality, we need to understand that there's a big gap between students and teachers. In distance education, right now, we're doing distance education, we're doing emergency remote learning because the immediate context is that it's not possible to do face to face. But it simply means that we cannot go to the classroom. Should education stop? I think that's the question that we've been trying to answer, and it's very clear to us that education should not stop. Face to face teaching and learning will have to be put on stop because of the danger, but we are now being challenged to explore different modalities so that we can better understand, better find ways on how to deliver learning to students remotely at the comfort of their homes. Okay? And we teaching in our own houses, or wherever we are right now. So we're doing emergency remote learning. I also want you to understand the keyword here. It's emergency. So life is not normal. What does that imply to us? That our students do not may have the necessarily skill. They might not be psychologically ready also to tackle the lessons. So therefore, the big challenge for going under emergency remote learning is, number one, are we are we going to practice flexibility? If there are students who are living in COVID infected barangays or locality, will the requirement of submitting an assessment be the same with the normal situation or the usual thing that is happening before COVID? What in terms of grading the work, how can you be flexible? What if a student says, I cannot go online because we don't have internet connection? Will you take it against the student, or are we gonna practice flexibility? Right? How are we going to practice flexibility at this time of the pandemic? Okay? So that's our why. Now, I want to proceed with the idea of transactional distance. In distance education, we have what we call as the idea of transactional distance. The transactional distance theory reminds us that there's a big gap between teachers and students. Your students are even scattered around your community or your locality. So it's very challenging right now on what it means to deliver learning, right? So there's a physical aspect, there's a physical gap that we need to understand, that we need to realize and to accept. However, that physical gap should remind us also that maybe we can find a way to still deliver learning. However, we also remind ourselves that that transactional distance is not just physical, it's also psychological. What does it mean? Psychological in the sense that it has an effect on the student. It could be negative. it could affect the way they're learning. For example, I do remember, for example, that when students are in the classroom physically, they are able to relate with their classmates. They're able to create, a sense of community. They have a sense of belonging. They trust their teachers. Some teachers or some students also see their teachers as positive role model. So in a way, that idea of social emotional connection, social emotional learning is affected because students are now, just locked in the comforts of, or maybe in their homes. There's no enough physical encounter, there's no enough connection or relationship that will be built because they're far from each other. However, it doesn't mean that there will be no relationship. There can be relationship built online when they go online and call each other, but in a way, the magnitude or how how deep those connections or relationship will also be affected. Of course, the psychological transactional distance could also be seen in the worry when students are worrying about what they're learning. What if they're not sure? Okay, it gives them a what if they're not sure about what they're learning, or if what they're answering is correct or not. It gives a sense of fear. It gives a sense of worry for the students also. And then of course we have pedagogical. I think this is very, very clear for everyone. Transactional distance could mean there's a pedagogical gap. What do you mean by pedagogical? It becomes harder for teachers to teach students. It becomes harder for students to understand what teacher is teaching because they're now separated from each other. The line of supports, academic support, driving of important knowledge and skills, all of these things are being affected. Assessment, the reliability of assessments will now be questioned. How are we sure that the students are the one answering their test and not their parents? Can we do something about the assessments that we give? Can we do something even about the honor systems? Can we do something about the grading system that we have? Because if we use the regular grading system where there are grades, where there is a ranking, what would happen? Parents will be the one answering the work of the students. I don't think that's a very reliable way of measuring student understanding, but you will have that problem. If you continue with your honors, I don't doubt that every one of your class will be in first honors, or they will be with honors and at the end, because they're now answering tests at home and we are pressuring them, right? Parents might be there to pressure them, intervene even because they want to get honors. So assessments are being questioned. What's the best way to assess student in distance education or blended learning? What's the best way of grading them? Okay, are we still using the traditional way of grading system? If we use the traditional assessment, traditional grading system, what would happen to our students? Will parents intervene so much just to ensure that their kids are getting perfect scores? Okay, so those are the things that we need to understand. However, the idea here right now is we want to minimize the negative effects of transactional distance. We cannot do anything about it. We are at the mercy of IATF. We are at the mercy of the government. When they say that face-to-face encounter is not possible, then we cannot do anything about it. But what we can do is to explore distance education so that we can allow for learning to continue. We can minimize the negative effects of transactional distance. So let's now understand what's distance education. Distance education is a mode of education that delivers learning to students without the need for face-to-face or for physical encounter. This is something that has been new. This is not something new. I'm taking my master's. I finished my all my academic units. I did my comprehensive exams through distance education. I am enrolled in the UP Open UP University of the Philippines Open University, and I've never set foot in UP Los Baños because that's where the headquarters of UPOU is, Open University. We're just doing distance education. I paid my enrollment. I applied online. I took my test online. I paid for my enrollment online. I have to take my comprehensive exams in distance education way. Everything else, it's distance education. So this is not something new. It's been there. It's just that we never thought of it. And I hope that we continue thinking about distance education because this is something that has been helping a lot of people. If you look at United Kingdom, in the United States, in Australia, everywhere in the world, they already have distance education established. But I think what we need to understand right now is maybe distance education is not just an alternative mode of education. It could also be a regular education like what's happening in UP Open University that we can take advantage of. All right? And as of right now, we need to understand how can we deliver distance education. So these are the modalities of distance education. These are the big ones. There are different forms of delivery of distance education, but the three major ones includes the use of printed materials, and then we have the broadcast way, and then we have the digital learning way. So I'm going to break down so that you'll be able to understand everything. When we say correspondence, these are the printed use of printed materials to deliver instruction. This was the oldest way. Even long time ago, this was how people are doing it in distance education. Why is it called correspondence? Because you have to send it via snail mail, via postal system. So the teacher sends to all students the learning packets. We call them learning packets, the modules, the worksheets, everything in there. And then the student do self-paced learning. And then if they have questions, they may call through the telephone or whatever. And then once they're done, they submit all the deliverables or need the worksheets or everything that they need to submit back to the teacher through postal system. That's why it's called correspondence. They're basically corresponding to each other. It could be it's a printed manner, so it's still being used right now for places who has no access to good access to internet or um, broadcast stations like TV and radio. Speaking of broadcast and TV and radio, this is the second means. I remember before one example of radio-based distance education is in Visayas. They've been teaching adult learners of what it means to the ideas about farming through radio-based instruction. Broadcast is simply using TV and radio to deliver instruction to students. But if you've noticed, correspondence and broadcast limits interaction. There's no two-way interaction. It's always one way. If there's a two-way instruction, you have to use another tool, like a cell phone, to call the teacher or to call the students. So in a way, correspondence and broadcast, the interaction of students are very, very limited. So if you're creating modules for correspondence and broadcast, I hope wag kayong magpa-group work. Don't do group work in correspondence and broadcast. Wala nga silang way of interacting. So erase that. Then we have another modality. It's called the offline or online. Actually, offline is only a replication of the offline thing falls also under correspondence and broadcast because it's one way. Kahit sabihin natin digital yung offline, there's no interaction with teacher yet. There's no live interaction. So whether we say offline, online, digital learning, yung offline na idea, it still falls with the category of one way direction of learning, right? I think the best, one of the things that we are emphasizing right now is online digital learning. But it gives us a lot of pressure because it requires internet. It requires learning gadgets. So we need to invest on this. But even if we cannot afford this, I think what is very, very important is there are different modalities that we can use. But you now see how different they are. For online digital learning, teachers can immediately give feedback because of the use of internet, like what we're doing right now. Okay, what I'm doing right now is a cross between broadcast and online. Okay, I'm broadcasting to some people. Our interaction will be later through the chat, but I'm also using online digital uh, platform. So it's an online broadcast or online digital broadcast. Interaction is allowed. So if you look at it, correspondence broadcast offline, very limited interaction with the teacher. If you want to give feedback, you have to call or find other ways. I need also to clarify, when we say modular, modular talks about how we divide the lessons or how we group together the lessons. So you could have a modular printed modality. You can also have an online modular material. Actually, in online learning, everything is in modular form. That's what we're following. In online distance learning, in my school, we're doing online distance learning. Everything else is modular. So let's try to clarify. When we say modalities of distance education, you can talk about the how we deliver it. We can talk about correspondence, broadcast, offline, or online. In terms of content, then we could say, is this modular or is this based on lessons or units? Okay? But I think right now, the most important way to adapting, in distance education, you never do lessons. In distance education, you always do modular approaches, whether it's printed, it's broadcast, offline, and online. Why? Because in modular, you are being forced as a teacher to find common themes, to chunk them into manageable but similar modules so that it's easier for students to understand. You know, when you compile, when you put things together in a modular way, you are also focusing yourself to achieving specific competencies. Kasi 'di ba yung per lesson ang daming competencies. But what happened right now is that we now have the most essential learning competencies, and in the most to understand the most essential learning competencies, we have to use modular approach so that we are able to focus on their development. That's one way of understanding modalities of distance education. Um, I've talked about this. You can do delivery or pickup system if you're doing correspondence or printed. Um, just a caution though for online learning. I think one of the challenges of using online resources or online apps and learning devices is that it's very dependent on the internet. And while it's very dependent on the internet, what we want to do is we don't want that we're always doing video conferencing. I think this is one thing that we need to clarify. Um, when we do online learning, it doesn't mean that we're always asking the students to go online and watch online discussions and lectures. No, that's not online learning. Online distance learning means that we have synchronous and asynchronous activities. Let's try to understand them later on. But when we mean online distance learning, it doesn't mean that we're going to do online lecture, online discussions, and whole day the students are facing the screen, listening to online. No, that's not the way we do online distance learning. So erase that idea, erase that idea. One thing that we need to clarify, okay? Now, this is what I'm gonna do now. There are times when we need to do synchronous and asynchronous activity. Synchronous means that we meet together in an online platform. Like what we're doing right now, this is a synchronous activity. Study at the same time, go on the same platform, and then communicate with each other. It's like an online lecture. It's an online discussion, like a webinar workshop. So everything is very direct. We want to go online. That's synchronous activity. However, we also have what we call as the asynchronous. Asynchronous means study at your own pace. No need to meet together. It's learner directed. You can do that through worksheets. You can do that through modules. You can also do that through online activities that they can do on their own. So for example, I have a project for you. You will not do it in front of me while you're doing online. You can do it at your own time. So it's possible that Monday you could go online synchronously because you will listen to the discussion. Tuesday, your science teacher will tell you no need to go online. Instead, read and answer the worksheets that I've given you. So that's how you can do. That's how you can do synchronous and asynchronous. It doesn't mean that every day you are online listening to a discussion. That's one thing that we need to understand. We don't need to do synchronous activities. Asynchronous means you study at your own pace, self-paced learning. I think if you're doing correspondence or broadcast, these are the time when we take advantage of learner direction, self-paced learning. But it doesn't mean that when we're doing online, hindi na tayo pwedeng asynchronous. No, that's a misconception and we want to clarify that. Okay? So, however, I want to bring up the idea that in distance education, we also need to practice flexible learning. When we talk about flexible learning, we are trying to tell everyone that you need to be flexible when you choose the modality. You need to understand the context of your students, families, and teachers. You need to understand that each student, each family, and even teachers have their own challenges, maybe in accessing and in terms of access to learning materials. So there's no pressure to go online if a lot of your students cannot go online. We need to clarify that. Is it possible to have two modalities in one school? Yes, it's very possible. If there are students who can access online materials, let them access online learning modules. If they don't have access, then allow for printed modules. But when you decide on this, you need to be careful because it will ask for more preparation. Teacher preparing for online, teacher preparing for printed. At hindi rin pwedeng, ay, mas maganda yung online. Ay, mas maraming ginagawa si teacher for online kaysa sa printed. No. Everything should be the same. Everything should be on the same level. So it doesn't mean that because you're online, your students will do more. Because it's online, they have more resources. No, dapat pareho. Whether printed, whether online, whatever modality, we need to establish that. Same lesson, same activity, even same form of assessment. No one should be more advantageous than the other. Okay? So I'm gonna stop at this moment and stop sharing my screen because I wanna look at your thoughts. I wanna look at your thoughts right now, and let's take a break because that's the first part of our discussion. And I just wanna try to understand how you are answering or processing the different ideas that I've shared to you. Okay, so and Anjali, is Anjali online?
Yes, sir.
All right, so I'm just taking a break right now to let everyone process the first part. Do you see any question that are coming out in
Uh,
our YouTube or everything's clear to them?
so far, sir, wala pong questions. There's one comment from Miss Larry Jane Roscoe. Thank you for debunking some of the misconceptions, sir. Hashtag empowered life.
Okay, so thank you so much. I think you can also give in your insights if you have questions. I'm not really quite sure of how many misconceptions we have, but I will be very very happy to understand or listen to other some questions. Is the internet okay? I think it's becoming choppy.
Yes, sir. Two of the comments said na it's choppy daw po.
All right. Sige.
Sir Padit is also with us, sir. We'd also like to acknowledge po the presence of our principal, Dr. Romel S. Beltran, who's with us via Zoom.
Good
Sir is
afternoon,
there.
sir. Thank you for
Okay, so
So there,
let's
thank you, sir. I'm Jonathan. So there's one question here from YouTube, and they're asking for the misconception of the modular being a modality. So this is from Joyce MM, sir,
sorry. The question is on.
asking about the misconception of modular being a modality.
Okay, misconception. I think what happened was that already combined the idea. That was also my reaction to that. When we say modality, it's how you deliver, right? The modes of delivery. But if let's try to understand it, that means that they already put together two important things. Um, in printed modular, that means that you will do modules instead of the individual lessons. And for the modules, you will have to deliver them to students via printed materials, right?
Okay,
However,
yes, sir.
yung modular na idea, it's not only restricted to printed. A lot of online distance learning, a lot of schools who will do online distance learning has also shifted to modular approach. So right now, it really depends also on the decision of the school. A lot of schools have also shifted. Kasi listen, if you're gonna prepare for modules, why not also prepare for modules for online, right? It doesn't make sense that you have a modular printed, but your online is not modular, right?
Yes,
So
yes,
okay, so I think that that clarifies the idea of modules and the modular approaches. Okay,
yes, sir.
and the different modality of what we can do. But it doesn't really make a difference. The point there is we deliver lessons, we deliver instruction through modules, whether online, offline, or whatever.
Okay. There are no more questions, sir. But I want to ask about that. When we get back to the normal someday, like if ever there would be a vaccine already, what are the things that are online, or some of these things, technology, or maybe learning modalities that are online that could be applied to the real or the normal teaching?
Can I just go back again to your question? What was your question? The last part.
What could be taken from our online classes that we could still apply to the normal classes, like the face to face?
Oh, very good. Very good question. You know what? That question actually reminded me to give this idea. Whatever you plan for online learning, kasi isipin nyo, pag nag-online learning kayo, ibig sabihin, you're now having ICT skills, advanced ICT skills as the teacher. You are
Yes.
now acquainting your students how to study with digital tools. You know, in the classroom, in our school, we've been using technology. We do one-to-one iPad for 11 years now. So our students can do study or can study with technology, whether online or classroom based. You know, we need to understand that when we're doing online learning, it's not just for the sake of the pandemic. Because when you go back to the classroom, you can now ask your students to create projects using ICT tools, right?
Yes.
That's now
Yes.
technology integration. Actually,
Yes.
technology integration can happen whether face to face or whether in distance education. So, what can you gain from it? All the lessons that you have planned, even the skills that you ask the students to to learn so that they can be able with technology, those are transferable skills which they can already use which they can already use in
Yes.
their regular classroom learning. Does that make sense?
Yes, thank you, sir. So there are no
Okay.
more questions from our viewers from YouTube.
All right. Thank you so much. All right. So that's a long term. That's a long. I think that's a long term way of looking at the investments, the technology investment, the technology professional development that you're having right now. It's a long term. It's a long term product. It's a long term vision. So that when you go back to your regular face to face interaction, you are now confident to teach with technology. Your students are now confident to learn with technology also. So it does not end after pandemic. You can now elevate, you can now level up the way you will teach in the classroom because you can now teach with technology, whether face to face or online. I hope that clarifies the discussion also. I'm now gonna go to the second part. The second part is understanding the how. What are the essential consideration for distance learning? Number one, ensure equity among students and teachers first. This means that everyone should have access. So when we choose to do online learning, we make sure that everyone to a should have access to a learning device. Hindi pwedeng pumili ng online learning tapos as modality tapos hindi naman pala nakaka-access lahat. Or if there are a few number of students who cannot access, then we should find a way to help them gain access to whatever modality that we are choosing. Kahit printed, kahit TV or radio, we must also ensure that there's equity. Some people are saying, let's just do radio or TV. That means that you need to make sure that they have their own TV or radio. Kasi kahit mag-TV or radio tayo, kung wala naman silang TV or radio, then it's not possible. What does that mean then? Equity means whatever modality that we make or that we choose should be based on the context of the students, should be based on the context of the families. And if there are students or families who cannot make use of this or don't have access to this modality, then we find a way to make sure that they have an access. This could mean partnering with the local government unit to give learning devices or TV or radio or whatever form. It could also mean, for example, maybe asking ourselves, is this really the modality that we want to use? So that we are able to give access to everyone. Ang nakakatakot lang kasi dito is yung decisions natin on modality will become barriers of learning. Hindi pwedeng maging barriers of learning yung pinipili nating modality. Or if we choose modality, can we choose two modalities to accommodate everyone? Whether it's online or printed. Yung maganda lang dito is whatever thing that you decide to choose or modality, you need to make sure that the basic laman or content of the lesson of the module is the same for both. Okay? So ensure equity also. Second, ensure that teachers are ready. Okay? You need to learn the skills of flexible learning. You need to learn the skills of teaching. Your workshops like this are examples, but you need to be open to new things. Teacher skills do not happen overnight. What I do not like is there are a lot of teachers complaining about they don't know how to do this, they don't know how to do that. But they are being given professional development. It's just that sometimes teachers who do not want to do it simply don't want to do it. They might have reasons behind it. But what I'm asking right now is we need to be open to new things. Hindi pwedeng kapareho ng ginagawa natin noon ang gagawin natin ngayon. Kasi nga hindi normal yung situation natin. We need to make sure that we adjust. I think now we are being tested as educators. Our dedication, what it means to become an educator is being tested right now. It's also the same thing. What it means to become a school leader right now is also being tested. Everyone's being tested. And of course, we can only find a solution if we remain open to whatever new things that will be as of us. But it doesn't mean na hindi po pwedeng mag-complain. I think we are complaining, but we are being more reactive. I think it's okay to air out our concern, but we need to find a way on how we can find solutions to our concern. Hindi pwedeng complain, 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 complain. Complaining is good, but we need to force ourselves to find solution. Where everyone is in this together, we are in this together. You are not alone. We need to work together. We need to collaborate and help each other. I think that's a basic call that I have to share right now. And in relation to that, do not be too hard on yourself. Do not be too hard on yourself or on your students. This is a new thing. So we need to give room for improvements, right? Failure is important right now. What does that mean? Hindi po hindi po tayo nag-aambisyon na perfect lahat ang mangyayari ngayon. When I say failure is important, it reminds us that no one is perfect. At some point, we will commit mistakes along the way. Right now, we are clarifying misconceptions, things that we thought were correct before, but we're now opening ourselves. We might commit some mistakes, we might prepare for everything, but in the end, when we commit mistakes, we don't become too hard for ourselves on ourselves. Even our students, kung nahihirapan ang mga students, tulungan natin sila, right? Kung nahihirapan ang mga teachers na kasama natin, nagkamali sila, wag natin silang tuloy-tuloy na i-put down. Failure is important. Ang society kasi natin, even our schools, and I think this is something that I want to bring up, our school puts perfection on top. In the end naman, no one is perfect. This is what I don't like. There are a lot of teachers who demand perfection from students. Bawal magkamali, dapat perfect. Ikaw nga as a teacher, you're not perfect. Why would you demand the same thing from students? You only demand perfection if you can be perfect by yourself, right? I think this is very, very important because we don't even celebrate failure. Sino yung sineselebrate natin? Yung top 1, yung rank 1, yung 100%, right? But in real life, seldom do we get people who get the perfect scores. Ang gusto natin is tulungan natin yung mga nahihirapan, tulungan natin silang makaahon because they have failed. You know the meaning of fail? Failure is not simply committing mistake. Failure is your first attempt in learning. And when your first attempt in learning or fails, that's okay. At least you're learning. I think that's the most important thing. We need to learn from our mistakes. We need to learn from our mistake, and we'll be committing a lot of mistakes right now. Hello, this is new. This is the first time that we're doing. No perfect system right now, but we need to be able to open ourselves to learn from our experience right now, to learn from the experience of another teacher. Sharing, hindi ngayon yung competition time. Now is the time for us to help each other because the success of one teacher is the success of everyone. The failure of one is the failure of everyone. We need to work together. We need to collaborate and work together as a community. Okay? Number 4, I've seen this. Use appropriate materials and tools. Respect copyright of published materials. Can I just remind you teachers, please, huwag kayong kopya ng kopya sa mga libro or mga online resources that have copyright. Nakakahiya sa atin ng mga teachers na gawin iyon tapos tinuturuan natin yung mga students, huwag magnakaw, huwag magsinungaling, be honest, practice integrity, don't steal, respect the property of other people. When in fact, mga teachers, tayo ang nangungopya. It doesn't make sense. Remember, educators, you are models. You are role models of your students. So therefore, please, I'm begging you because we have committed a lot of challenges here. DepEd has also spoken about it. Use appropriate materials and tools. Respect copyright of published materials. Yung pagda-download sa YouTube, that's a big no-no, especially if they are copyrighted materials. Okay? Number 5, rethink tests or assessment and if possible grades. I don't know how DepEd will do this or your school will do this, but a lot of schools right now are rethinking tests or assessments. Yung mga quizzes ba ninyo, yun pa rin yung test ninyo. Kung yun pa rin yung test ninyo, ipapasagot nyo sa mga bata at home, whether offline or printed, how are you sure that there will be less parent intervention? How are you sure that it's not the parents or the tutors or the older brothers and sisters that who are not answering them? How are you sure that the students are the one answering? My answer to that is there's no way for us to find out. However, ang feeling ko lang, makikialam ang parent pag nakikita nila na ang grading system natin, ang honor system pa rin natin ay pareho. Kung ang mga assessments natin ay grade natin na may 100, na may 80, na may 90, tapos sasabihin natin na kasi may honor system in the end, ay talagang makikialam ang mga parents. At the end of the graduation, at the end of the term or quarter, lahat ng mga students nyo, honors. And we know that the result is reliable. Will we push to that? Will we push that? Or will we say, pag-isipan kaya natin, paano pagbaguhin natin yung grading? Yung grading natin, hindi na lang siya numbers, wala tayong honors. Pag numbers ba at walang honors, mag-aaral pa rin ang bata. Makikialam pa rin ba ang mga parents? Doon mo matetest kung sino talaga ang gustong mag-aral dahil gustong mag-aral, or makikita mo yung mga students or even parents na nag-aaral lang para magka-honors. Right now, why are we asking them to rethink? Why are we asking you to rethink test or assessment? Kasi we're not in a normal situation. Yung grading system natin, it was meant for face-to-face assessment when there is no parent intervention. Student is on their own. Right now, anong magagawa natin? Medyo wala. Hindi naman natin alam kung sila yung sumasagot. So we need to rethink how would we engage our students better. Number 6, for online learning, ensure that students' digital skills are enough. Kailangan pong isipin natin na pag nag-isip tayo na online learning, isipin niyo po yung mga young learners ninyo. Alam ba nilang gumamit ng internet? Ng computer, pag sinabi natin, nandun naman yung parents sila. Paano pag may trabaho ang mga parents sila? Paano pag essential workers sila? Sino yung tutulong sa kanila? So let's be careful in whatever modality, especially in online learning, that we are choosing. Because you do not assume that they know what they're supposed to do. You do not assume that parents know how to use computers. In my school, what we're doing right now is we have orientation for students. We also have orientation for parents or guardians. So that we will teach them how to use the apps or the software that we will be using, the learning management system, because we want to ensure that they are ready. So ganun po din sana yung isipin natin. At this point in time, let's be careful not to assume that everyone has the same digital skills. Kung teachers nga kailangan mag-aral, paano pa kaya yung mga students and their parents? All right, so I hope that is clear. I want to skip this right now because I think we've touched much about this. Instead, I want to focus on what it means to design, what it means to design, modules. I want to focus on the what of establishing online learning. Okay, let me just share. Okay, so the what of establishing distance education program. Number 1, it's very, very important that they recognize synchronous and asynchronous learning activities. Yung synchronous, it's easy to understand. Synchronous means students go online together, they use different tools, and they listen to teacher. Teacher can provide immediate feedback and answer concerns of students. Synchronous is very, very important. I think it's very helpful when we want to give immediate feedback to or answer concerns of students. However, synchronous activities going online for online learning, it's very prone for internet disruption, or maybe to be interrupted by the internet or other tech problems. So we need to be careful also with that, because you cannot use synchronous activities during the whole day. Can you imagine whole day nakatitig ang bata sa screen? Kung parent or kung matatanda nga, nahihirapan din tayo. So, we need to be careful with the way we use synchronous activities. Please don't deliver online lectures. Do not deliver online lectures. Instead, if the content of your lecture could be read asynchronously or could be watched asynchronously, read meaning printed or online, then make use of learning resources that they can use for self-paced learning. Huwag pong laging online ng online, nakakasira sa mata. So anong kailangan natin? Asynchronous. What does asynchronous mean? Asynchronous means students learn at their own pace. It could be done through online or offline instructional material such as videos in USB, for example, or printed worksheets or modules or stories that they could read. Why do we want asynchronous? Because students can manage pace of learning. They can practice flexibility and even choose when they're gonna learn it. Maganda ang asynchronous, especially if there are no parents with them during the day. If you give them then asynchronous activities, then they can study that with their parents when they arrive at home. But it doesn't also mean na, uy, nandun ang mga parents, itambak na natin sila. No. Parents will not teach. Let's remind ourselves, parents will not teach, they will only guide. Kasi kung kaya ng parents magturo, ano pang pinagkaiba natin? Ag-aral tayo ng ilang taon para maging teacher, kaya lang naman palang gawin ng parent yung ginagawa natin. No, that's not the mentality that we want to give. The modules that you are creating should be easy enough to understand that the students can read them on their own. Parents will only be there to guide them and tell them, "Oy, listen. Oy, think about it." Okay? The parent will only teach if nahihirapan yung bata. But what am I asking you? When you create your modules right now, make sure that they are easy to understand. Make sure that kids can interact with them. One thing that I want to share is the idea of the idea of making things simple. Can I share to you this idea? Tips of what we want to understand. Keep learning activities simple. Less is more. When you create your modules, make sure that your modules are not full of a lot of things to be done. The basic idea is keep learning activities simple. Less is more. Huwag pong damihan yung ginagawa. Hindi to parang classroom. Sa classroom kasi ang dami nating pinapagawa. May motivation ka na, papasayawin mo pa sila. Hindi ko alam kung bakit natin ginagawa minsan yun. Pampatay oras ba? Kasi ang dami nating session. But in online distance learning or in distance education, wala pong motivation. Hindi nyo sila papasayawin. Diretso po kayo agad sa lesson. Be straightforward. If you want them to do this, let them do this. Of course, less is more means that if you can deliver instruction with less use of materials, then better. I want you to focus on the essentials and the non-negotiables, concept and skill. Meron na kayong most essential learning competencies. Follow them. Huwag na po kayong maghanap ng iba because they have already decided what is essential. So focus on them and make sure that they are not being left behind. Can I also share something that I have learned from my principal, from my school leader? She always reminds us of MAMI. What does MAMI mean? Minimal activities, maximum impact. Minimal activities, maximum impact. Keep your activities simple, keep them minimum, but make sure that your activities have impact. Make sure that it helps the students achieve or develop the competencies. I think that's very, very important. Second, for those creating modules, make sure that the students can feel your presence. Ang mga modules kasi natin, sobrang parang mga libro. Ang modules hindi libro. Ang libro ang hirap basahin. Ang modules po are extension ng teaching presence nyo. Your students should hear you, should be able to recognize you when they read your instruction or online module. Yung mga module kasi natin sobrang objective. What we're doing right now is, this is in the distance education, it's called the guided didactic conversation. In distance education, when you create modules, your modules should be talking to the students. Your modules should be talking to the students so that they can hear you, so that whether they are studying at home or wherever they are, the module or the learning platform, or if you go online, your learning management system is an extension of yourself as a teacher. Okay? So your modules should be able to interact with the students. If you're using apps for learning, make sure that they are familiar apps. Make sure that they are the apps that are easy to learn for students. And if there are new apps to be used, ensure that students and even parents, especially for young learners, know how to use the apps. Huwag po kayong magsabi na ito yung gagamitin na app, bahala na kayong mag-aral. No, you cannot do that. You cannot do that. You cannot do that. So make sure that you provide orientation. You provide orientation for parents. Pwedeng magkatabi yung anak at magulang sa pag-aaral, pag-orient ng mga apps. And then of course, provide communication or back-end channels. What do we mean by that? Provide communication or back-end channels for learner or home support. What does that mean? Can you share your number so that if there are problems, they can call you. If they have questions, they can call you. Hindi pwedeng sila-sila lang. Tapos pag hindi na nila yung alam yung gagawin na, bahala na sila. No. Make sure that there is learner support or home support. Back-end channel could mean your cell phone, calling you, your Viber, your Messenger, whatever things that you decide. Pero dapat pare-pareho kayo as a school. You should have the same means. Dapat standard yung ginagamit ninyo. If you want email, then you can use also email as a form of communication. So of course, I also want to emphasize that in the end, I'm skipping the rest of the slide because I was able to discuss them already. But I want to focus on the idea of being able to be flexible. So I want to go to my final thoughts right now. Don't worry about the slides that I skipped. We've already discussed them with the questions that we had a while ago. But 3 things. Number 1, what if students quote and unquote cheat or get so much help from people at home? I think this is what we want to share to our parents and students. Assessment at this time of remote learning is meant to verify what they have learned and point out areas that needs improvement and where the teacher can give assistance or help. So cheating gets in the way. So kung hindi nila, like for example, kung ang bata natutulungan ng parent lagi or sinasagot ng iba, then we need to remind our parents and our students that, they're the one losing the opportunity to learn. It's not us. Kung mag-cheat sila, hindi tayo yung nawawalan ng pag-aaral. Sila yung nawawalan ng pag-aaral. So we need to remind our parents and our students that the function of assessment in distance or remote learning is actually a way of giving us an idea of where they can improve on. But if they cheat, if they let other people answer it and they got everything correctly, but in reality, hirap na hirap sila, then medyo hindi na natin problema yon. Kasi tayo ngayon niloko nila right? It goes back to them. That is the thing that they need to realize. So that we can tell the parents, oops, parents, mga magulang, hinay-hinay. Hindi nyo kailangang sagutan lahat. Tulungan niyo yung bata para ma-realize kung ano yung mali niya. I think that's one way of communicating it to them. Of course, when we make assessment, are we assessing students' work or student homes? When we say assessment, when you use printed modules or when you created online learning modules, make sure that your assessment is the same. Hindi pwedeng, mas maganda yung assessment ng mga naka-online kasi naka-online sila. O yung assessment ng printed, ganito lang kasi printed lang. No. You start with a basic assessment that students can answer fairly whether they're online or offline or printed. You don't create assessment, you don't design assessment based on access to resources. That will be very, very unfair. Okay? So we assess students' work, not assess their resources or their access to resources. We need to rethink assessments and grades. We need to contextualize the discussion and the decision making in the present reality while not losing our sight of the essential and non-negotiable in learning and teaching. Kailangan natin pag-isipan kung paano tayo magtuturo ngayon. We need to understand it clearly. When we deliver instruction, when we assess our students, when we grade them, sana we contextualize it with what is happening right now. We cannot be too demanding to our students. Hindi pwedeng parehong expectation nung before the pandemic and during the pandemic. Ang hirap po noon. A lot of our students are struggling. A lot of their parents are struggling. They can see their parents working hard. We might have even parents who have lost their job because of the quarantine or the quarantine protocols that are in place. So make sure that we need to be careful. We need to be careful in whatever decision that we make. If it's very, very basic, like for example, mag-printed na lang tayo to make sure that everyone's accommodated. Well and good. That's a good choice also because you're making sure that no one's getting left behind. But if you choose to go online and then you can tell yourself, no, we will partner with our local government unit and they're very much willing to help us, then well and good also. What I am just telling everyone is that we need of course to make sure that everyone is on board. Another thing, when you're preparing for the distance learning program for your school, school matters, school culture matters. Ano ang kultura sa school ninyo? Anong kultura ng paaralan ninyo? Ang kultura niyo ba mahalaga ang collaboration? Sa school niyo ba mahalaga ang pagtutulungan? Sa school niyo ba okay lang magkamali basta matuto ka? Or ang school nyo ay isang eskwelahan na mahigpit ang competition among teachers na hindi sila nag-share, tinatago nila yung resources para mas mauuna sila. Ang school nyo ba, ang kultura ba ninyo is kailangan perfect lahat, hindi pwedeng magkamali. Ang school nyo ba, ano ang kultura? School culture matters in the end because whatever decision that you make, when you make it a reality, nakasalalay din yun sa kamay ng parents, sa kamay ng students, sa kamay ng mga teachers. So what kind of school culture? Will you foster a school culture that has collaboration right now? Will you foster a school culture that shares resources, that shares materials to everyone para nagtutulungan kayo? What are your values? What are the sets of beliefs that you have? Are you valuing camaraderie? Are you valuing equality? Are you valuing equity? Kailangan nating i-review yung mga yon. Because if we value those good things, then we are able to create a better distance learning program. Okay? In the end, this is my ending right now because I want to discuss more of some of your questions. The new normal is telling us that more than online learning, the new normal for education and for teachers is having the skills of flexibility and even adaptability to shift from one mode of teaching and learning to one another. Kasi in the end, we don't know when the pandemic will stop. But right now, we're now learning new skills. We're opening ourselves to be flexible and adaptable to distance learning. After this, does it mean that we forget everything? No. What you need to do is to always remember the skills that you have learned, the knowledge that you have right now, because we don't know when the pandemic or when the next disruption will be coming again, right? So I think this is one thing that I want to remind. Learn new skills so that you are able to shift from one mode of teaching and learning to another. Hindi nyo na in the future, hindi nyo na problemahin because you now know how to teach face-to-face, you now know how to teach with technology, you now know how to teach in distance learning approach. So that's my ending right now. It's okay. Things are, this is the thing that I need to understand. Things are very hard right now. And it's okay to see that it's very hard. But more than that, I need you to give yourself credit, to give yourself a sense of improvement. You are learning, it's hard, it's okay. Reach out to other people, reach out to your fellow teachers. They might need your help. Reach out to everyone, collaborate with everyone. The solution to this is not in the hands of one person. The solution might not be even in the hands of your own principal, because your principal, your school leaders, your curriculum heads will have to work with every educator, with every teacher to make sure that these things that are happening are achieved, whether perfectly or not. Let's not focus on perfection. Let us focus on more being flexible, on being adaptable, so that whatever challenge that comes our way or mistakes, we face them head on and with confidence. So with that, I end my short sharing about distance teaching and learning. Marami pa po. You please subscribe to my YouTube channel. I'm gonna bring out some online sessions. A while ago, I had an Empower Ed live session, which you can visit. I was live with my friends from Mexico and from the Philippines. We talk about the storytelling at this time of the pandemic. How we can use storytelling to help students understand or cope with what's happening in the pandemic. So there's a lot of happening in my Empower Ed platform right now. So please don't forget to subscribe on Facebook. Follow me on Facebook or in YouTube also. So there, thank you so much, Angeli. I'm gonna stop sharing now, and maybe we could allow for discussion to happen.
All right, thank you, sir. I'm Jonathan, so I'll be sitting in
Okay.
for Miss Angeli. So far, we have 223 viewers in our YouTube streaming, and then one of the discussions that they have put here is using Turnitin as checking of the originality of the works. Do you advise this, sir, for students like the high school students?
Yeah. I think that's a very, very good plan. I think that's a very good tool. Turn it in. You could catch, kasi in the end, your senior students would need to create. They need to write their own. How do you call it? They need to write their own research, right? Researches, and turn it in
Yes.
could help you to catch which is a plagiarized work, which is an honest work. Use it. Use all the tools that could help you look for what is very, very helpful in your school.
Yes, sir. So a while ago you mentioned also about the motivation. So one teacher is asking whether we can still have the different let me see, let me go back again. So the different process, like aside from motivation, can we still do that
What do you mean by
just to
motivation?
make sure that there is interaction? Like the motivation usually when we begin the lesson, is there any alternative to that?
Let me ask you, why are you using motivation? Right? So I think we need to
For
understand that. Why are we using motivation first? To to motivate
so
them.
usually to engage the students or to get their background knowledge, usually that one.
Okay. So if your goal is to get their background knowledge, then use it. But I just need to be honest. I don't trust the motivation design of other teachers. I've seen other teachers ask students to sing, to dance, recite a poem, and tas in the end wala naman palang connect. 'Di ba? Parang sinayang mo yung
Yes.
oras mo, sa pagpapasayaw sa mga bata. Tapos yung connection lang pala isang statement lang, right?
Okay.
Let's try to understand motivation. Motivation is not simply to motivate or engage student. It's actually to bring out prior knowledge. It's actually the motivation part is more to bring out prior knowledge, more to ask them to connect, to bring out their misconception. So if you're doing that, very good. But remember, how are you going to give feedback, right? How are you going to give
Yes.
feedback
Yes.
when you brought out misconception? Yun yung kailangan yung isipin sa module. If you're doing printed for the module, because if you have a motivation activity that brought out prior knowledge, that brought out misconception, how are you going now to process it, especially when you're doing printed kung walang interaction, right? So
Exactly.
okay lang
So
yun.
we really have to
Okay lang yun.
practice, mommy. So far, sir, there are no more questions from our online viewers from our YouTube, and we have 224, 226 now watching our YouTube streaming. That's
Thank
it,
you
sir.
so much. I think this is very. I love what's happening right now, and of course, if you have questions, please don't be shy. I think this is the time for you also to bring out your thoughts. And I know I would understand it's okay to ask questions. Medyo nandun kasi tayo sa kultura na nakakahiyang magtanong ng question. But right now it's okay. It's okay to ask questions. But even if you don't have a question, then it's okay also.
So they were just sharing, sir, that they were thankful of your of the lessons that you're giving them. They recognize as this are new to them also, and they're really glad that you have given this new information to them.
Oh, that's very good. Thank you so much, and I'm actually very happy to be here with you. Thank you for the invitation also.
Thank you. With us also we have Dr. Beltran, our dear principal.
All right. Hi, Dr. Beltran.
Hi, sir.
Hello, good afternoon, sir. Thank you for sharing your knowledge and expertise on the topic. We are very much grateful, especially those who are in this webinar. Of course, we are now really, due to your inputs that you have given us today, we will be more ready now to really prepare for our modality that since that we are now in the process of collecting the data, the survey we we gave to our parents and students. It's about time to really think and prepare this if we will choose this modality. And of course, the culture that Antipolo National High School is having now, I think there is the culture of collaboration, and we cannot go away from that issue. That, of course, in terms of there are teachers, or we really respect the individual differences. But I think or the diversity of teachers, diverse teachers that we have currently 453 teachers, and it's really very hard to really manage those teachers with different ideas. But I think through the help of our head teachers and the master teachers and key teachers, I think we can handle these challenges that we are now facing. And of course, we are very much thankful that you have shared all your thoughts and ideas and experiences in this distance learning session, sir. Thank you po, Sir Francis.
All right.
Thank,
Thank you,
thank you, sir
Dr.
Beltran.
Beltran. I think that's a wonderful message that you've shared to everyone. Of course, in the end, I would also understand we will have different ideas, and it's okay also to have different ideas. I think that's where we get to get more perspective. But I also pray. I just want to say that I'm keeping you, and I'll pray for you, and I hope that you would be able to find your own way at this time of the pandemic. Your teachers, your students need you right now. They really really need you. Please make sure that no one gets left behind. And of course, thank you, Dr. Beltran, for the wonderful words also. And
Welcome, sir.
there,
So,
yeah,
so there is one more question.
yes.
So there's another question here. From Ma'am Sheila Strabo. She's asking whether what is more advantages the for teachers to use the asynchronous or the synchronous.
There's no one way of answering that. I think it really depends on what you want to do, right? But I think also you need to take advantage. We need to consider what modality. So if you're doing printed modalities or offline or the broadcast, everything will be asynchronous, right? It's a given because there's no way
Correct.
for you to go online. But if you are doing online learning and you want to do synchronous and asynchronous, um, kahit mag-synchronous kasi tayo, we need to understand that internet connection is very expensive for some. So you cannot do a lot of synchronous activities. When you do synchronous activities, make sure that they are important online discussion. Huwag po kayong mag-online na magle-deliver ng lecture. Kung yung laman naman ng lecture mo or discussion, kaya nilang basahin. 'Di ba? Through printed material, PDF, or panoorin sa YouTube or whatever. What I usually do, I usually use Synchronous if I have a special guest, a guest expert. 'Di ba? If I know a person who's an expert about the topic and he wants to be part of it, I do online. But even if we do online, I always record the synchronous activities, and then I upload them so that those who cannot watch it can online can actually watch it through USB or through YouTube or Facebook. So the answer to which is more advantageous, number one, it depends on what you want to do. But second, consider also access of your students, right? Right now
Yes.
there's much inclination to asynchronous. There's much inclination to asynchronous because you want to design all your lessons as self-paced learning. If you are going to design with more asynchronous activity, you are being challenged to design modules, whether online or printed, in a much simpler way, right? So hindi
Exactly.
pwedeng maglagay kayo
Yes.
ng dami-daming content. You cannot do that. You cannot give a lot of content. You want it to be simple, but at the same time, hindi nyo bababaan. But I just need you to make it more clear, to be more simple for
Yes.
all students. All right. So I hope I was able to answer
Okay, sir.
that.
Thank you, sir.
Do you, sir, advise to use Facebook for online classes?
Um, to be honest, number one, I don't. Because it's social media. Tayo nga matatanda, na-addict tayo sa
Yes.
social media. How much more? But there are some people kasi who are saying, but that's the only free app that they can use. If that's the only way of delivering materials to them, may I ask you that if you make that decision, may I ask you to guide the students? Give them a training on managing themselves. Train them digital citizenship, mastery. Kasi we need to teach them that there are a lot of distraction in social media, and we're using a social media tool as a way of delivering instruction. So let's remind them, let's train them to practice self-discipline. If that's the only way that we can think
Thank
of.
you.
Okay?
Okay. Thank you, sir. Do you still have one time for one more question?
Sure, sure.
Okay, so one question from Sir Boker Duran. He's asking, how can we avoid copying or avoiding copyrights if it's not in our field of specialization?
Um, this is a very, very tricky question because it assumes a lot. Number one, if you are not in a specialized situation, it's not your specialization. I want to be more specific with this. For example, you are being asked to create a history expert. Is that it? Is that the question? Okay. Can I
Yes.
don't have a perfect answer to this, but may I direct you to the idea of open education resources, OERs. OERs are not new.
Yes.
The DepEd has been introducing OER for a couple of years now, but OERs have been present even before. There are a lot of open education resources online. You could go search online, you could make use of them. Of course, DepEd Commons is there, but DepEd Commons is not the only source of OERs. There are a lot of OERs in the higher education and universities and colleges international, especially for those teaching science, biology, economics. Look for open education resources online. There are a lot. search for public domain. Search for public domain materials, which when I say public domain is could be used freely by anyone. Search for it. Second, search for Creative Commons. Creative Commons are resources that allow anyone to make use of them and edit them. Okay? So, three things. Number one, open education resources. Aside from DepEd Commons, there are other OERs in the internet. So you can take a look at that. Second, public domain. Look for public domain materials. Okay? And third, Creative Commons. Look for Creative Common materials in the internet. There are a lot of people who would allow you, in terms of picture din ha, pictures under Creative Commons. There are a lot of pictures under Creative Commons. You just need to look for the proper websites that would allow you to use them. Okay, so those are my answer right now in terms of avoiding copyright materials. Of course, you could always reach out to the publishing, to the one who published it. Okay, maybe they can work with you at this time of the pandemic also. All
Thank you,
right.
sir. So there are no more questions from our YouTube streaming. Oh, oh.
All right. I think we've lost our host, but yeah, I think we're all done. Thank you so much. Is Sir Jonathan back or Dr.
Yes, sir.
Beltran?
Yes,
Thank
sir.
you.
Thank you.
Are we ready to
Okay,
dismiss
so
them? Are we ready to dismiss the class?
Of course,
thank you, sir,
yeah.
for your discussion. So may we have our word from our principal. Thank you.
Of course, again, thank you, Sir Francis, for sharing everything that you have in mind on this distance learning, and also to the program management team headed by Mamara as our L&D coordinator, to all the teachers who are participating in this webinar. Of course, it's a really big challenge on our part as teachers as we prepare for our lesson exemplar under the idea model. This coming week, I know that we will be have the reorientation per department, and I know we are really had the capacity to adjust to situations. We are flexible. Yan, yan ang pinakamahalaga sa atin ngayon. And of course, we must consider our parents, the capacity of our parents and our students. Yun ang isa sa binigay na point kanina ni Sir Francis. Their capabilities, especially itong ating online distance learning. So,
Thank you, sir.
thank you for this for the participation. Even though it's a Saturday, I know that all these blessings will be what we are doing is really sa kay Lord. May balik ito kay Lord. I know. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Ronald Beltran, our principal. And also thank you to our speaker today. A very important, he had a very informative lecture to us today. I hope that everybody have learned. Again, thank you, Sir Francis Jim Toscano, our speaker today.
Hopefully, sir. Thank you, sir.
So
Thank you. Hopefully, we can meet in face to face on some other time, sir.
Yes po. I hope to. Oh, yeah, I hope so also. I would be very. I have a friend teacher in Antipolo, Mr. Hamisal.
Yeah, sir.
Yeah.
Senior high school.
Yeah. Yeah. So there, and I have some friends in Antipolo also. So would be good to visit you also. Thank you so much, everyone.
Okay.
Really appreciate
Salamat po.
it.
Bye-bye. Thank you.
All right. So
thank you, sir.
I think
Thank you
we're
very much.
done.
And thank you also to our online streamers, to our 203 online streamers. Thank you for participating today. I hope that everybody has learned with our speaker. Thank you so much.
You. Thank you, Sir Padit.
Thank you, sir. Ayan, tapos na tayo.
All right.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you,
I hope to
everyone.
meet you
So
also.
I will now end our live streaming, and happy weekend to everyone. Thank you so
Weekend
much.
po.
Sir, you may also send us your link so that we can post it on our Facebook, so that our teachers also can follow your online videos.
Yes, po. It's there already. Ayan.
All right.
Okay.
Thank you.
It's on
Yes,
the
thank you.
YouTube. Thank you so much.
Thank you po. Thank you po. God
Bye.
bless.
Bye po.